She's mine. 2 words. That's all it took to shatter everything Kate Lawson thought she knew about boundaries, power, and the man she'd worked beside for 3 years without ever truly touching. Adrian Wolfe, billionaire, fortress, untouchable, just claimed her in front of 200 people who mattered, and now there's no going back. But claiming someone and keeping them safe are two very different things. And in Adrian's world, where fortunes are built on secrets and blood, loving someone might be the most dangerous game of all. Stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Boek. The Apex Hotel didn't just host events, it owned the skyline, 30 floors of glass and steel that reflected the city's lights like a crown made of ambition. Kate Lawson stood near the edge of the ballroom, champagne flute in hand, watching a world she'd never belonged to perform its quarterly ritual of excess. She'd been to dozens of these galas in her 3 years as Adrian Wolfe's executive assistant. She knew the rhythm by now, the peacocking executives, the wives dripping in jewelry that cost more than her annual salary, the waiters moving like ghosts through conversations that determined whether companies lived or died. Kate had learned to be invisible here, which wasn't hard. In her simple black dress, elegant but unremarkable, expensive but not too expensive, she could observe without being observed. That was the job. See everything, disturb nothing. Kate, darling, you look positively lost. She turned to find Marcus Chen, VP of Acquisitions, swaying slightly with his third scotch. His smile was too wide, his eyes unfocused. Just taking it all in, she said smoothly. You know how these things are. Oh, I do indeed. He leaned closer, voice dropping. Though I have to say, you're wasted in that assistant role. Someone with your attributes could do much better. Kate's smile didn't waver. She'd had this conversation before, in a dozen variations. I'm quite happy where I am, Marcus. If you'll excuse me. Marcus, go bother someone else. The voice cut through the ambient noise like a blade. Kate didn't need to turn to know who it was. She'd been attuned to Adrian Wolfe's presence for 3 years, the way you become aware of weather patterns or the phases of the moon. You learn to read the shifts. Marcus straightened immediately. Adrian, I was just leaving, Adrian finished. His tone wasn't harsh, exactly. It didn't need to be. Adrian Wolfe rarely raised his voice because he rarely had to. When you controlled half the commercial real estate in the eastern seaboard, people listened to whispers. Marcus retreated with a mumbled excuse. Kate finally looked at her boss. Adrian stood with that particular stillness he'd perfected, the kind that made other men seem restless by comparison. At 42, he wore his tuxedo like it was a second skin, his dark hair showing just enough silver at the temples to suggest gravitas rather than age. His face could have been carved from marble, sharp jaw, aristocratic nose, eyes the color of winter storms. She'd memorized that face 3 years ago and pretended she hadn't. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. Yes, I did. Adrian's gaze swept the room, a habitual assessment. Marcus has a harassment complaint in HR that legal is currently burying. I'd prefer he not add you to the list. I can handle Marcus. I know you can. That's not the point. He said it matter-of-factly, like he was discussing quarterly projections, but something in his tone made Kate's pulse quicken. She took a sip of champagne to cover her reaction. The bubbles tasted expensive and empty. The Nakamura deal is waiting for you at 9 o'clock, she said, shifting into professional mode because that was safe. That was the territory they'd mapped together over 3 years of 18-hour days and late-night strategy sessions in his office. He brought his daughter. She's the one actually running their operations now. Adrian's mouth quirked, not quite a smile, but close. You researched her. I research everyone. I know. That's why you're invaluable. The word hung between them for a moment. Invaluable. Not indispensable, not irreplaceable. Invaluable. As in beyond price. As in couldn't be measured. Kate looked away first. I'll be around if you need anything. Stay close. She nodded and drifted back toward her position near the wall, watching as Adrian moved into the crowd with the fluid confidence of someone who'd been performing at this altitude his entire life. She watched him greet the Nakamuras, watched him deploy his arsenal of subtle smiles and precisely calibrated charm. She'd seen him do this 100 times. She knew every gear in the machine. What she didn't know was why tonight felt different. Maybe it was the champagne. Maybe it was the way the lights caught the crystal chandeliers and made everything feel slightly unreal. Maybe it was because next week marked her third anniversary with Wolf Enterprises, and she'd been lying to herself about what that meant for approximately 2 years and 11 months. "Excuse me." Kate turned to find a man she didn't recognize. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit that screamed old money. His smile was practiced and didn't reach his eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I was hoping you could." He extended a hand. "Victor Castellane. I'm an investor currently evaluating several opportunities with Wolf Enterprises." Kate shook his hand briefly. His grip lingered a fraction too long. "Kate Lawson. I'm Mr. Wolf's executive assistant." "Ah." Something flickered in Castellane's expression. Interest. Calculation. Something else she couldn't quite name. "How convenient. I've been trying to get on Adrian's calendar for weeks. Perhaps you could facilitate an introduction." "Mr. Wolf is occupied at the moment," Kate said carefully, "but I'd be happy to have you schedule something through the proper channels." "The proper channels." Castellane's smile sharpened. "Of course, though I have to wonder—" He let his gaze travel over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "Does Adrian keep all his valuable assets so accessible?" Kate's jaw tightened. "Mr. Castellane, because I'm always looking for quality talent," he continued, voice lowering. "Someone with your skills, your access to information, you could be quite valuable in the right position. Are you available?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Kate felt the ripples spread outward, felt the conversations around them pause as people turned to listen. In this world, information was currency, and she'd just been publicly offered a price. She opened her mouth to deliver the polite, professional brush-off she'd perfected. "She's mine." The words cut through the ballroom like a gunshot. Kate's heart stopped. Completely stopped. Then restarted with a kick that made her dizzy. Adrian was suddenly there, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something dark and expensive that she'd never been able to identify. His hand settled on the small of her back, proprietary and unmistakable. The heat of his palm burning through the thin fabric of her dress. The room had gone silent. 200 people, frozen, mid-conversation, staring. Castellane's eyebrows rose. "I wasn't aware you and Miss Lawson had a personal arrangement." "Now you are." Adrian's voice was glacial. "We're done here, Victor." It wasn't a suggestion. Castellane's smile turned sharp. "Of course, my mistake." He nodded to Kate. "Enjoy your evening." He disappeared into the crowd. The conversations resumed, but Kate could feel the attention still focused on them, could practically hear the gossip sparking to life like wildfires. Adrian's hand was still on her back. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Terrace. Now." He moved toward the French doors without waiting for a response. Kate followed because she didn't know what else to do. Because her entire world had just tilted on its axis, and she was free-falling. The terrace was empty, lit by strings of lights that made everything look soft and romantic in a way that felt like mockery. The city sprawled below them, glittering and indifferent. Adrian walked to the railing and gripped it hard enough that his knuckles went white. Kate stopped a few feet behind him. Her hands were shaking. She clasped them together. "What the hell was that?" she finally managed. Adrian didn't turn around. "That was me making a mistake." The words hit her like a slap. A mistake. "I shouldn't have—" He cut himself off, jaw working. "Castellane is a shark. He was testing you, testing me, looking for leverage. I reacted. You claimed me, in front of everyone. I know. You don't claim people, Adrian. You don't do jealousy. You don't lose control." Her voice was rising, and she couldn't stop it. "You're the most controlled person I've ever met. 3 years. And I've never seen you so much as loosen your tie at the office. So what the fuck was that?" He turned then, and the look on his face stopped her cold. "You want to know what that was?" His voice was low, dangerous in a way she'd never heard before. "That was 3 years of control finally breaking. That was me watching you smile at mediocre men who don't deserve to breathe the same air you do. That was me sitting 15 feet away from you every day, watching you exist and pretending I don't notice." Kate couldn't breathe. "Adrian, do you know what you do?" He took a step toward her. "Every morning at 7:45, you come into my office with coffee and the Wall Street Journal. You read me the headlines you think I'll find interesting. You tuck your hair behind your left ear when you're concentrating. You have a tell when you think I'm making a bad call. You tap your pen twice against your notepad. I notice, Kate. I notice everything. Then why? Her voice cracked. Why have you never said anything? Because I'm your boss. Because I'm 18 years older than you. Because there's a power dynamic that makes any relationship between us ethically complicated at best and exploitative at worst. He laughed, bitter. Because I have rules, Kate. I've built my entire life on them. And you're the first person who's ever made me want to break every single one. The confession hung between them like a live wire. Kate's mind was racing. 3 years. 3 years of professional perfection, of carefully maintained boundaries, of nights when she went home to her small apartment and pretended she didn't dream about him. 3 years of telling herself it was just proximity, just the intimacy of working closely with someone brilliant and driven, just chemistry with nowhere to go. So what happens now? She whispered. Adrian's expression shuddered. Now I apologize. We go back inside, we finish this event, and tomorrow morning we have a professional conversation about establishing clear boundaries. That's it? What else can there be? Kate, I just announced to a room full of investors and competitors that you're mine. Do you understand what that means? You're going to be scrutinized, questioned. They're going to dig into your background, your relationships, your bank accounts. They're going to look for any sign that I've shown you favoritism or given you insider information. Your professional reputation is about to be shredded because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Stop. Kate moved closer, heart hammering. Stop making decisions for me. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need honesty. She looked up at him, this man she'd studied for 3 years without ever really knowing. You said I'm yours. Did you mean it? The question landed like a bomb. Adrian stared at her, something raw and dangerous moving behind his eyes. Yes, he said finally. I meant it, which is exactly why this can't happen. Why not? Because I'm not good at sharing power, Kate. I'm not good at compromise. The relationships I've had, they've been transactions, clean, controlled, no mess, no expectations beyond what's explicitly stated. His jaw tightened. You deserve better than that. What if I want the mess? You don't know what you're asking for. Then tell me. She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from him. Tell me why this is such a terrible idea. Tell me why I should go back to pretending I don't feel this. Adrian's control was fracturing. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his hands had curled into fists. Because if I touch you, I won't stop. Because I've spent 3 years building restraint and it's hanging by a thread. Because the things I want, Kate, I don't do casual. I don't do halfway. If I have you, I'll want all of you, and I don't know if I can be what you need. What I need, Kate said slowly, is for you to stop deciding what's good for me and let me make my own choices. This isn't a choice. This is a complication that could destroy your career. My career working for you? Adrian, do you think I'm blind? Do you think I don't know exactly what agreeing to this would mean? She laughed, sharp. I'd have to quit. Immediately. Because you're right. The power dynamic makes this impossible while I work for you. So you need to decide. Do you want to keep me as your assistant, or do you want something else? The silence stretched between them, taut as a bowstring. I can't ask you to give up your position, Adrian said finally. You've worked too hard. I'm not asking your permission. I'm asking you to choose. Kate's voice steadied. Keep things professional, and tomorrow morning I'll be in your office at 7:45 with coffee and the journal. Or? She reached up and loosened his tie, just enough to slide it through his collar. The silk whispered between her fingers. Adrian went absolutely still, watching her with an intensity that made her dizzy. Or you take me home, she finished quietly, and we figure out the rest tomorrow. Adrian caught her wrist. His grip was gentle, but she could feel the tremor running through him, the last threads of his control beginning to snap. If we do this, he said, voice rough, everything changes. I know. Your job, your reputation, the way people see you. I know. Kate, he closed his eyes. I need you to be sure. She used her free hand to cup his face, feeling the scratch of stubble against her palm, the heat of his skin. Adrian, I have never been more sure of anything in my life. Something broke. She felt it happen, saw it in the way his expression shifted from control to hunger in the space of a heartbeat. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up, and then he was kissing her. The world disappeared. Adrian kissed like he did everything else, with complete focus, total mastery, and an intensity that made her knees weak. His mouth was demanding, possessive, claiming her with a thoroughness that stole her breath. Kate gasped, and he deepened the kiss, his other arm banding around her waist to pull her flush against him. This was nothing like the polite, controlled man she worked beside every day. This was raw want, 3 years of restraint shattering all at once. Kate met him kiss for kiss, her hands fisting in his jacket, drowning in the taste of him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "We can't stay here," he said roughly. "No. If we leave together, everyone will know." "They already know," Kate's lips curved. "You claimed me, remember?" He pulled back just enough to look at her, and the heat in his eyes made her stomach flip. "I did, and I'm not taking it back." "Good." Adrian's hand slid from her hair to cup her jaw, thumb brushing over her bottom lip. "Last chance to change your mind, Kate. Take me home." He kissed her again, harder this time, like he was sealing a promise. Then he grabbed her hand and led her back through the terrace doors. The ballroom was still in full swing, but Kate felt every eye track their movement as they crossed toward the exit. Adrian didn't slow, didn't acknowledge the stairs. His hand was firm around hers, his stride purposeful. They were almost to the elevator when a voice called out, "Adrian, leaving so soon?" Adrian turned. Marcus Chen was weaving toward them, his scotch miraculously still intact. "Family emergency?" Adrian said smoothly. "Kate, let's go." But Marcus had already focused on their joined hands, his eyes widening. "Well, well, the rumors are true." "Marcus, don't worry, I won't tell anyone." Marcus's grin was sloppy. "Though I have to say I'm surprised. Didn't think you were the type to mix business and pleasure." Adrian's expression went cold. "That's because you don't know me at all. Now move." The elevator doors opened. Adrian pulled Kate inside and jabbed the button for the parking garage. The doors slid shut on Marcus's stunned face. The moment they were alone, the air in the elevator changed. Kate became acutely aware of the enclosed space, the tension vibrating between them, the way Adrian was looking at her like she was something he wanted to devour. "Your car or mine?" she managed. "Mine. I'm not letting you out of my sight." The words sent heat pooling low in her stomach. "Possessive." "Yes. No apology." "I told you I don't do halfway." The elevator descended. Kate watched the numbers tick down, her heart racing. This was insane. She was leaving a corporate gala with her boss, her former boss, she corrected herself, because she'd have to quit. That was non-negotiable. And she had no idea what came next, just that she wanted it more than she'd wanted anything in her life. The doors opened. Adrian's hand settled on her lower back again as he guided her toward his car. A sleek black Audi that probably cost more than she'd made in her entire 3 years at Wolf Enterprises. He opened the passenger door for her, then circled to the driver's side. The engine purred to life. Adrian pulled out of the garage and onto the city streets, his hands confident on the wheel. Kate watched his profile in the intermittent glow of streetlights, still trying to process the fact that this was happening. "Where do you live?" he asked. "West Village, but..." She hesitated. "Where are we actually going?" Adrian glanced at her. "Where do you want to go?" "I asked first." "Fair enough." He turned onto the highway. "My place. Penthouse in Tribeca. But if that makes you uncomfortable..." "It doesn't." "Kate." His voice dropped. "I need you to understand something. If you come home with me tonight, I'm not going to be able to keep my hands off you. I've wanted you for 3 years. Now that I've had a taste..." He cut himself off, jaw working. "Just tell me if you need me to slow down." Kate's pulse was thundering in her ears. "I don't." The look he gave her could have melted steel. They drove in silence for several minutes, the city blurring past. Kate's mind was still racing, adrenaline and desire mixing into something intoxicating. She kept thinking about the kiss on the terrace, about the way Adrian had looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. What was Castellane really after? She asked suddenly. Adrian's hands tightened on the wheel. Information. He's trying to put together a hostile takeover of Meridian Properties. He knows I have shares. He was testing to see if you could be bought. And when I couldn't, he tried to make me jealous, which worked, obviously. Adrian's mouth twisted. Victor Castellane is a predator. He finds weaknesses and exploits them, and I just showed him exactly where mine is. The words settled over Kate like a weight. You think he'll come after me? I think he'll try, which is why Adrian's jaw tightened. Kate, I meant what I said. Everything changes after tonight. You're going to become a target for anyone who wants leverage against me. Your privacy will disappear. Your past will be scrutinized. People will make assumptions about how you got your position, what you've done to earn it. I know. Do you? Because I don't think you understand the world you're stepping into. He took the exit toward Tribeca, his voice going rough. I've spent my entire life building walls, Kate, keeping people at a distance. It's safer that way. Cleaner. And you're asking me to tear them all down. I'm not asking you to do anything, Kate said quietly. I'm just asking you to let me in. Adrian pulled into an underground garage, killed the engine. For a long moment, he just sat there, hands still gripping the wheel. I don't know how to do this, he said finally. I don't know how to be what you deserve. Kate reached over and covered his hand with hers. Then we'll figure it out together. He turned to look at her, and the vulnerability in his expression nearly broke her heart. I'm going to disappoint you, he said. Probably. She smiled slightly. I'll disappoint you too. That's how this works. Adrian lifted their joined hands and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Come upstairs. They took the private elevator to the penthouse. Kate had been to Adrian's apartment exactly once before, dropping off documents when he was working from home during a blizzard. She remembered glass and steel and a view that made you feel like you were floating above the city. The elevator opened directly into the foyer. Adrian led her inside, then turned to face her, and suddenly the air was charged again, that same electric tension from the terrace. Drink? He offered. Are you stalling? His mouth curved. Maybe. Why? Because once I start, I won't want to stop. And I need to know you understand what you're agreeing to. Adrian stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her face. Kate, if we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back to the way things were. I don't want to go back. You might, when you see what I'm really like. When you realize I'm not the controlled professional man you work with. His thumb traced her cheekbone. That man is a mask, Kate. What's underneath? It's not pretty. I'm demanding, possessive. I don't share well. And I've built an empire on being ruthless. I know who you are, Kate said. I've worked beside you for 3 years. I've seen you destroy competitors and broker deals that made grown men cry. I've watched you hold grudges, and I've seen you be absolutely merciless when someone crosses you. And I'm still here. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or relief. You really see me, he said quietly. Yes. He kissed her then, slow and deep, his hands sliding into her hair. Kate melted against him, her own hands finding their way under his jacket to the warmth of his body beneath. She could feel his heart hammering against hers, could taste the want on his tongue. Adrian broke the kiss long enough to shrug out of his jacket. Then his hands were on her waist, her hips, pulling her closer. Kate gasped as he lifted her, her legs wrapping instinctively around him. He carried her down the hall like she weighed nothing, shouldering open a door that led to a bedroom dominated by a massive bed and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He set her down beside the bed, his hands finding the zipper of her dress. Tell me if I need to slow down, he said against her mouth. Don't you dare. The zipper whispered open. The dress pooled at her feet. Adrian stepped back to look at her, his gaze traveling over her with an intensity that made her shiver. 3 years, he said roughly. 3 years of imagining this. Kate reached for his tie, the one she'd loosened on the terrace, and pulled it free. Show me. And he did. Later, much later, Kate lay tangled in Adrian's sheets, her body humming with satisfaction, her mind still spinning. Adrian was beside her, propped on one elbow, his free hand tracing idle patterns on her skin. No regrets? He asked quietly. Kate turned to look at him. His hair was disheveled, his expression open in a way she'd never seen before. None. You? Just one. Her stomach dropped. What? That I waited 3 years to do this. He leaned down and kissed her, soft and sweet. Though I suppose it was worth the wait. Kate smiled against his mouth. Flatterer. Truth teller. He pulled back, expression growing serious. We need to talk about tomorrow. I know. I'll submit my resignation first thing. Kate, no arguments. I can't work for you if we're doing this. It's not ethical, and it's not fair to anyone. She sat up, pulling the sheet with her. I'll help you find a replacement. Train them. Make the transition smooth. But I can't stay. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. What will you do? I don't know yet. Find another position. I have good references. Well, I did before tonight. She laughed slightly. I'll figure it out. I don't want you to struggle because of this. I'm not your responsibility, Adrian. Yes, you are. His voice was firm. I claimed you, remember? That makes you mine to protect. Kate raised an eyebrow. We're going to have to discuss this possessive thing. It's not a thing. It's who I am. He caught her hand, laced their fingers together. I told you I don't do halfway. That includes this. You're mine now, Kate. That means I take care of you. I can take care of myself. I know you can. That's not the point. Adrian's gaze was steady. The point is that you don't have to. Not anymore. The words should have rankled. Kate had spent her entire adult life being independent, relying on no one. But there was something in the way Adrian said it. Not like he was trying to control her, but like he was offering her something. A partnership. A haven. What exactly are you suggesting? She asked carefully. I'm suggesting that you take time to figure out what you want to do next. No pressure, no deadline. In the meantime, he hesitated. Move in with me. Kate blinked. What? You heard me. Move in with me. Your lease is up next month anyway. Don't look surprised. I notice things, remember? Move in here. Give yourself time to breathe without worrying about rent or finding a new job immediately. Adrian, I can't. Why not? Because we literally just had sex for the first time an hour ago. Because moving in together is a huge step. Because, she gestured helplessly, because this is insane. Everything about tonight has been insane, Adrian pointed out. What's one more thing? Kate stared at him. He looked completely serious, those storm-colored eyes steady on hers. You're really asking me to move in with you, she said slowly. Yes. After 3 years of strict professionalism, yes. Because you're possessive and you want to take care of me. Yes. No hesitation. Also because I want you here. I want to wake up next to you. I want to come home to you. Kate, I've spent 3 years keeping you at arm's length. I'm done with that. If we're doing this, I want to do it right. Her heart was hammering. This was crazy. This was moving way too fast. This was... Okay, she heard herself say. Adrian's expression shifted to surprise. Okay. Okay. Kate laughed, slightly hysterical. Yes, I'll move in with you, because apparently I'm as insane as you are. He kissed her, hard and possessive, and pulled her back down into the sheets. Good, he murmured against her mouth. Because I wasn't planning on taking no for an answer. Possessive, Kate accused. I warned you. And he had. He'd warned her about all of it, the possessiveness, the intensity, the way he didn't do anything by halves. Kate had walked into this with her eyes open, and she wasn't going to pretend otherwise. But as Adrian's hands found her again, as he kissed his way down her throat and made her forget her own name, Kate realized that warnings didn't matter. Not when the alternative was going back to the way things were before. Not when the alternative was pretending she didn't want this man with an intensity that terrified her. Adrian had claimed her in front of 200 people tonight, and Kate had claimed him right back. Everything else, the consequences, the complications, the scrutiny that would come, they'd face together. Because that was what you did when you stopped living in the shadows and stepped into the light. Even if the light burned, especially if it did, Kate woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the disorienting realization that she was in Adrian Wolfe's bed. Her dress was somewhere on the floor. Her phone was buzzing insistently from her clutch across the room, and Adrian was already awake, propped against the headboard with his laptop balanced on his knees, wearing reading glasses she'd never seen before. You wear glasses, she said, voice rough with sleep. He glanced over and something in his expression softened. Only when I'm reading. You snore, by the way. I do not. Lightly. It's cute. He set the laptop aside and removed the glasses, folding them with deliberate care. Your phone's been going off for 20 minutes. Might want to check it. Kate groaned and dragged herself out of bed, wrapping the sheet around herself as she retrieved her clutch. 17 missed calls, 32 text messages. She scrolled through them with growing dread. Her sister, OMG, call me right now. Her college roommate, please tell me that wasn't you leaving the gala with Adrian Wolfe. 3 different former colleagues, need to talk. ASAP, and one from Marcus Chen, sent at 2 in the morning. You're making a mistake. It started, she said quietly. Adrian was beside her instantly, reading over her shoulder. His jaw tightened as he scrolled through the messages. Block Marcus. The rest, ignore them for now. I can't just ignore my sister. Then call her. But Kate! He caught her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. Whatever they say, whatever they think they know, it doesn't change what happened last night. Unless you want it to. Did she? Kate searched his face, looking for regret or second thoughts, but all she saw was certainty. Adrian looked at her like she was something precious he'd finally allowed himself to claim, and the intensity of it made her chest tight. No, she said. I don't want it to change. Good. He kissed her, slow and thorough. Now go call your sister before she sends a search party. I'll make coffee. Kate watched him walk away, shirtless, comfortable in his own space in a way she'd never seen at the office, and felt reality settling over her like a weight. This was real. This was happening. She'd slept with her boss, agreed to move in with him, and now she had to face the consequences. She dialed her sister. Mara picked up on the first ring. Catherine Marie Lawson? What the actual hell? Good morning to you too. Don't you good morning me. I have 3 people asking if you're the mystery woman who left the Apex Gala with Adrian Wolfe. Please tell me it's a rumor. Kate sank onto the edge of the bed. It's not a rumor. Silence. Then, Kate, please tell me you know what you're doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. That's what I was afraid of. Mara's voice gentled. Talk to me. What happened? So Kate told her. Not everything. Some parts were too private, too raw, but enough. The confrontation with Castellane, Adrian's claim. The conversation on the terrace, the choice she'd made. When she finished, Mara was quiet for a long moment. Okay, she said finally. Okay. First question. Did he pressure you? No, God, no. If anything, he tried to talk me out of it. Second question. Do you trust him? Kate thought about 3 years of working alongside Adrian. The way he'd never once crossed a line. Never made her uncomfortable. Never used his position to leverage anything from her. The way he'd looked at her last night, like she was worth shattering his carefully constructed control. Yes, she said. I trust him. Then, third question. Are you prepared for the fallout? Because, Kate, this is going to get ugly. People are going to assume you slept your way into your position. They're going to say he took advantage of you. Your professional reputation is going to take a hit. I know. And you're okay with that? Kate looked toward the kitchen where she could hear Adrian moving around, the familiar sounds of coffee being made. I'm quitting. Today. I can't work for him if we're together. Smart, Mara sighed. And then what? You're just going to be his girlfriend? Kate, you've worked so hard. I'll find another job. I have skills, experience. I'll figure it out. While living with a billionaire who could take care of you without breaking a sweat. Mara's tone was careful. I'm not judging. I just want to make sure you're not losing yourself in this. The words hit harder than they should have. Kate gripped the phone tighter. I'm not. You sure? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're giving up everything for a man you just slept with for the first time last night. It's more complicated than that. It always is. Mara paused. Look, I love you, and if this is what you want, I'll support you. But promise me you'll be careful. Men like Adrian Wolfe, they're used to getting what they want. Just make sure you're not becoming another acquisition. After she hung up, Kate sat staring at her phone. Mara's words kept circling in her head. Just make sure you're not becoming another acquisition. Everything okay? Adrian stood in the doorway holding 2 mugs of coffee. He was dressed now. Black slacks and a crisp white shirt. No tie. Still barefoot. It was the most casual she'd ever seen him. My sister thinks I'm making a mistake, Kate said. He crossed to her and handed her one of the mugs, then sat beside her on the bed. Is she wrong? I don't know. Maybe. Kate took a sip of coffee. It was perfect, exactly how she liked it, which meant Adrian had been paying attention for 3 years. She's worried I'm giving up too much for you. She's not entirely wrong. Kate looked at him sharply. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're sacrificing your career, your professional reputation, and your independence because I couldn't keep my hands off you. Adrian's voice was flat. That's not nothing, Kate. I made a choice. A choice I pushed you into. Stop. Kate set her coffee down and turned to face him fully. You didn't push me into anything. I knew what I was doing last night. I know what I'm doing now. And I don't need you second-guessing my decisions. I'm not second-guessing. I'm acknowledging reality. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Kate, I've been thinking about this all morning, about what happens next. And I need to know, if you could keep your job, would you still want this? The question landed like a punch. What kind of question is that? An honest one. If there was a way for you to have both, your position and whatever this is between us, would you choose it? Kate stared at him. There isn't a way. You said it yourself last night. The power dynamic makes it impossible. I know, but that doesn't answer my question. She wanted to lie. Wanted to say that of course she'd choose him, that the job didn't matter, that she was willing to walk away from everything she'd built. But Adrian was looking at her with those storm-gray eyes, and she'd never been able to lie to him. I don't know, she admitted quietly. I've worked my entire adult life to get where I am. Being your assistant, it's given me access, experience, connections I never would have had otherwise. And yes, losing that hurts. But I'd still choose this. Choose you. Even knowing what it costs. She reached for his hand. Adrian, I'm not going to pretend the job doesn't matter. It does. But you matter more. He closed his eyes briefly, something like relief crossing his face. When he opened them again, the vulnerability was back, that rawness she'd seen last night. I need to tell you something, he said, about my world, about what you're really stepping into. Kate waited, her stomach knotting with unease. Adrian stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. You know what I do? Real estate development, commercial properties, investments. What you don't know is how much of it operates in the gray areas. Legal, technically, but he turned to face her. I've made enemies, Kate. Powerful ones. People who would use anyone close to me as leverage. Like Castellane. Castellane's just one of many. There are others. Some who operate within the law, some who don't. And all of them would love to find a weakness they could exploit. His expression was grim. You become that weakness the moment you're publicly connected to me. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to be honest. Because if we do this, if you really move in here, if we make this official, your life will never be private again. You'll be followed, photographed, investigated. People will dig into your past looking for anything they can use. Kate thought about her past. It wasn't scandalous exactly, but it wasn't pristine either. Student loans she was still paying off. A boyfriend in college who'd turned controlling until she'd had to get a restraining order. A father who'd walked out when she was 12 and never looked back. Let them dig, she said. Adrian studied her for a long moment. You're serious. Dead serious. Adrian, I know what I'm signing up for. I know it won't be easy. But I also know I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been. She stood and crossed to him. So yes, I'm scared. Yes, this is overwhelming. But I'm still here. He pulled her close, his arms coming around her with a possessiveness that should have felt suffocating, but somehow didn't. I'll protect you, whatever it takes. I know you don't need protection. I'm offering it anyway. He pressed a kiss to her temple. That's the deal, Kate. You're mine to take care of now. She should have argued, should have insisted on her independence. But there was something seductive about the way he said it. Not like he was trying to control her, but like he was promising to stand between her and anything that tried to hurt her. Okay, she said quietly, but it goes both ways. I take care of you too. Adrian's laugh was low and surprised. Deal. They stood like that for several minutes, wrapped in each other, the morning sun warming them through the windows. Eventually, Kate's stomach growled, breaking the moment. When did you last eat? Adrian asked. Yesterday, at the gala. Kate grimaced. I was too nervous to eat much. Nervous about what? She pulled back to look at him. About you. About wanting something I thought I couldn't have. Something shifted in his expression. Heat and possession and something softer that made her breath catch. But before he could respond, his phone buzzed on the bedside table. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. "It's Robert," he said. Robert Chen was his CFO and, coincidentally, Marcus's older brother. "I need to take this," he answered, putting it on speaker. "Robert." "Adrian, we need to talk about last night." Robert's voice was tight. "Specifically about you leaving the gala with your assistant." "Former assistant," Adrian corrected. "Kate will be submitting her resignation this morning." Kate blinked. They hadn't actually discussed the timeline, but apparently Adrian had already made the decision. "That's not going to be enough," Robert said. "Adrian, do you have any idea what kind of optics this creates? The board is already calling, investors are asking questions, and Marcus is a drunk who tried to poach my employee," Adrian cut in. "His opinion is irrelevant. He's still my brother, and he's saying you've been having an inappropriate relationship with Kate for months." Kate's hands clenched into fists. Adrian caught her eye and shook his head slightly, a silent message to wait. "Marcus is lying," Adrian said flatly. "Kate and I maintained a strictly professional relationship until last night. Anyone who suggests otherwise will be dealing with my legal team. Are we clear?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Crystal. But Adrian, you need to control this narrative before it controls you. Issue a statement. Make it clear that Kate resigned before anything personal developed. Emphasize that there was no misconduct." "I'll think about it." "Don't think. Do it. Today." Robert's voice gentled slightly. "I know you care about her, but you need to protect both of you from this. The longer you wait, the worse it gets." After Adrian hung up, he was quiet for a long moment. "He's right," Kate said. "We need to get ahead of this." "I know." Adrian's expression was grim. "Which means we need to go to the office. Now. You submit your resignation in person, we make the announcement official, and we present a united front." Kate's stomach dropped. "Adrian, I can't just walk into Wolf Enterprises and resign. People will talk either way. At least this way we control the timing." He cupped her face in his hands. "I know it's not ideal, but we need to rip the Band-Aid off, fast and clean." She knew he was right, didn't make it easier. An hour later, Kate walked into the gleaming glass tower of Wolf Enterprises for what would be the last time as an employee. She'd gone home to change. Adrian had driven her, waited in the car while she threw on a navy suit that screamed professional competence, and now she was riding the elevator to the executive floor with her heart in her throat. The doors opened. The reception area went silent. Kelly, the receptionist, stared at her with undisguised shock. Behind her, Kate could see other employees whispering, phones being grabbed, the news spreading like wildfire. "She's here. Kate Lawson is here." Kate lifted her chin and walked toward Adrian's office. His door was open. He was standing by the window on the phone, but he turned when she entered and something in his expression eased. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, then hung up. "Ready?" "No, but let's do it anyway." He almost smiled. "That's my girl." The words wrapped around her like armor. Kate pulled the resignation letter she'd drafted on her phone during the car ride and set it on his desk. One paragraph, clean and professional. Adrian read it, his expression unreadable. Effective immediately. "It's the only way this works." "I know." He looked up at her. "But for the record, you've been the best assistant I've ever had. Replacing you is going to be hell. Flattery won't change my mind. Not trying to." He came around the desk and pulled her into his arms. "I'm just stating facts." The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Wolf, the board is requesting an emergency meeting in 20 minutes. Adrian swore under his breath. "Tell them I'll be there." He pulled back, hands settling on Kate's shoulders. "I need to deal with this. Go home. My home. I'll have your things moved from your apartment this week. We'll figure out the rest tonight." "You're already moving my stuff?" "You agreed to move in. I'm expediting the process." His mouth quirked. "Possessive, remember?" Despite everything, Kate found herself smiling. "How could I forget?" He kissed her, hard and claiming, then stepped back. "I'll see you tonight. Don't answer any calls from numbers you don't recognize. If anyone from the press contacts you, refer them to our legal team." "Adrian, I mean it, Kate. This is about to get worse before it gets better. I need to know you're safe." The concern in his voice was real, and it made her chest ache. "Okay, I'll go to your place. I'll wait." Good. He pressed another kiss to her forehead. I'll make this right. I promise. Kate left his office feeling unmoored. She'd just quit her job, ended a career she'd spent years building, all for a man she'd been sleeping with for less than 24 hours. Mara's words echoed in her head. Just make sure you're not becoming another acquisition. She was halfway to the elevator when a voice stopped her. Kate, wait. She turned to find Sarah Martinez, another executive assistant, hurrying toward her. Sarah worked for the VP of Development and had always been friendly, if not close. Is it true? Sarah asked quietly. Are you really resigning? Kate nodded. Effective immediately. Because of Adrian Wolfe. It wasn't a question. Kate met her gaze steadily. Because continuing to work for him while being in a relationship with him would be inappropriate. Sarah's expression was complicated, sympathy mixed with something else, envy maybe, or pity. People are saying you've been sleeping with him for months, that it's the only reason you got the position in the first place. The accusation shouldn't have stung. Kate had known it was coming, but hearing it said out loud, seeing the doubt in Sarah's eyes, made her anger flare. People can say whatever they want, she said evenly. The truth is I earned my position through 3 years of 80-hour weeks and flawless execution. What happened last night, that's separate, that's personal, and it's none of anyone's business. Kate, I need to go. She didn't wait for a response, just turned and walked to the elevator. Her hands were shaking by the time the doors closed. By the time she reached Adrian's building, her phone was exploding again. More messages, more calls. Someone had leaked her personal cell number, probably Marcus, and now reporters were calling, asking for comments, digging for dirt. Kate blocked numbers until her thumb hurt, then finally just turned the phone off. Adrian's penthouse felt too big without him in it. Kate wandered through rooms that looked like they'd been designed by someone with impeccable taste and no actual attachment to comfort. Everything was expensive and perfect and cold. She found herself in his office, a space she hadn't seen last night. It was all dark wood and leather, bookshelves lined with legal texts and biographies of ruthless men. His desk was massive, the surface clear except for a single photo frame. Kate picked it up. The photo showed a much younger Adrian, maybe 19 or 20, standing next to an older man who shared his features. His father, probably. Both of them looked serious, formal, like they were at some official event. That was taken the day I graduated from Harvard. Kate spun around. Adrian stood in the doorway, loosening his tie. He looked exhausted. I'm sorry, she said quickly, setting the frame down. It's fine. You live here now. Nothing's off limits. He crossed to her and pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. That was my father. He died 6 months after that photo was taken. Heart attack. Kate's arms came around him automatically. I'm sorry. Don't be. We weren't close. Adrian's voice was muffled against her shoulder. He was a hard man. Brilliant, ruthless, completely focused on building the business. I learned everything from him, including how to keep people at a distance. Adrian, the board meeting was hell, he said, pulling back. They wanted me to issue a statement denouncing our relationship, said it was bad for business, bad optics, that investors were nervous. Kate's stomach dropped. What did you tell them? I told them that my personal life is not up for committee vote, that Kate resigned to avoid any conflict of interest, and that anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with my lawyers. His jaw was tight. 3 board members threatened to resign. Robert talked them down, but barely. This is my fault. No, it's not. Adrian cupped her face. Kate, I knew what claiming you would cost. I did it anyway, because you're worth it. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this wasn't a mistake that would destroy them both. But doubt was creeping in, cold and insidious. What if it gets worse? She asked quietly. What if we lose everything because we couldn't keep our hands off each other? Then we lose it. Adrian's eyes were fierce. But we lose it together. That's the deal, remember? You and me, whatever comes. Kate kissed him, desperate and needing, and he responded with equal intensity, his hands tangling in her hair, his body pressing her back against the desk. They broke apart, breathing hard. I need you, Adrian said roughly. Right now, here. He kissed her again, deeper this time, his hands finding the buttons of her blouse. Kate gasped as he lifted her onto the desk, her skirt riding up, his mouth on her throat. Adrian, let me have this, he said against her skin. Let me have you. After the day I've had, I need to remember why it's worth it. So she did. She let him strip away her professional armor piece by piece until she was bare and vulnerable beneath him. Let him worship her body with his hands and mouth until she was trembling. Let him make love to her on his desk with a desperation that felt like drowning. Afterward, wrapped in his arms with her heart still racing, Kate realized something that terrified her. She was falling in love with Adrian Wolfe. Not the controlled professional version she'd worked beside for 3 years. Not the powerful billionaire who commanded rooms with a glance. But this man, raw and vulnerable and fierce in his claiming. The man who wore reading glasses and made her coffee exactly right. The man who'd looked at her last night like she was worth burning down his carefully constructed world. "What are you thinking?" Adrian asked quietly, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. Kate almost told him, almost confessed that she was terrified of how much she wanted this, how much she was willing to risk. But the words stuck in her throat. "I'm thinking we should probably put our clothes back on before someone delivers dinner," she said instead. His laugh was low and warm. "Dinner, right, I forgot about that." "You forgot to order dinner?" "I forgot about everything except getting you naked." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "I'll order something now. What do you want?" "Surprise me." While Adrian called in an order, Kate gathered her scattered clothes and retreated to the bathroom. She caught sight of herself in the mirror, hair disheveled, lips swollen, a faint mark on her neck where Adrian had gotten enthusiastic, and barely recognized the woman staring back. 24 hours ago, she'd been Kate Lawson, executive assistant, professional, competent, invisible. Now she was, what? Adrian Wolfe's girlfriend, his lover, his future? She didn't know, didn't have words for what this was becoming. Her phone buzzed from where she'd left it on the counter. She turned it back on to check if her sister had called. Instead, she found a message from an unknown number. "You think you know him? You don't. Ask Adrian about Castellane. Ask him what really happened in Philadelphia." Kate stared at the message, her stomach twisting. She should delete it. Should tell Adrian immediately. But something made her hesitate. Ask him what really happened in Philadelphia. What had happened in Philadelphia? "Kate? Food's here." She jumped, fumbling the phone. "Coming." She deleted the message and walked out to find Adrian setting out containers of Thai food on the kitchen island. He'd changed into jeans and a t-shirt, casual in a way that still felt surreal. "Everything okay?" he asked. Kate forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." He studied her for a moment, those sharp eyes missing nothing, but he didn't push. "Eat. Then we're both getting some actual sleep. Tomorrow's going to be worse than today." He was right. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more scrutiny, more people picking apart their relationship looking for cracks. But tonight, Kate sat beside Adrian and ate pad thai and pretended that mysterious text messages didn't exist. Pretended that she wasn't terrified of what secrets he might be hiding. Pretended that falling in love with a man who operated in gray areas wouldn't eventually destroy her. Because sometimes pretending was easier than facing the truth. And the truth was that Kate had jumped without looking, and she was still falling with no idea where she'd land. The question about Philadelphia haunted Kate for 3 days before she finally broke. She'd tried to ignore it. Tried to convince herself that whoever sent that text was just stirring up trouble, trying to drive a wedge between her and Adrian. But the words kept circling in her head during the quiet moments, when Adrian was on conference calls in his office, when she was unpacking boxes in what was now their bedroom, when she woke up at 3 in the morning and found him staring at the ceiling like he was solving problems only he could see. Ask him what really happened in Philadelphia. On the 4th day, Kate made a decision she wasn't proud of. Adrian had left early for a meeting with his lawyers, kissing her goodbye and promising to be back by lunch. The moment the door closed behind him, she went to his office. She told herself she was just looking for clarity, just trying to understand the man she'd moved in with, the man she was falling dangerously close to loving. But her hands were shaking as she opened his laptop, password protected, of course. But she knew it. She'd scheduled enough meetings, sent enough emails from his account over the past 3 years. The guilt was immediate and crushing. This was a violation, a betrayal of the trust Adrian had placed in her when he'd said nothing in his home was off limits. But Kate's fingers were already typing Philadelphia into the search bar. What came up made her blood run cold. News articles from 5 years ago. Headlines screaming about a development deal gone wrong, a building collapse, 3 construction workers dead. Investigations into corner cutting, bribery allegations, connections to organized crime. And at the center of it all, 2 names, Adrian Wolfe and Victor Castellane. Kate read through article after article, her stomach turning. The project had been a joint venture, Castellane providing the financing, Adrian handling development. When the building collapsed during construction, killing 3 men and injuring 7 others, the investigations had been brutal. Both men had been questioned. Castellane's financing was traced back to shell companies with suspected ties to the Moretti crime family. Adrian's permits had irregularities that suggested bribes to city officials. In the end, no charges were filed. The investigation concluded it was structural failure due to contractor negligence. The families of the dead workers received settlements. The case was closed, but the articles hinted at something darker. Witnesses who'd recanted their statements, evidence that disappeared, a lead investigator who'd suddenly retired and moved to the Cayman Islands. Kate's hands were numb as she kept reading. There was a photo from the incident. Adrian standing outside the collapsed building, his face younger but just as controlled, while Castellane spoke to reporters. They looked like partners, allies. So what had changed? What had turned them into enemies? She found the answer in a Business Journal article from 3 years later. Adrian had launched a hostile takeover of one of Castellane's companies, gutting it for assets and leaving Castellane with massive losses. The article quoted an anonymous source saying it was revenge, that Wolf had spent years positioning himself for the kill. The timeline made Kate's chest tighten. 3 years after Philadelphia, right around the time she'd started working for Adrian. Had he been planning this the whole time she'd known him? Building his empire on the ruins of men he'd destroyed? Find anything interesting? Kate's heart stopped. She spun around to find Adrian standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Her voice came out hoarse. You're back early. Meeting was canceled. He walked into the office slowly, deliberately, like he was approaching something dangerous. I forgot my briefcase. Imagine my surprise when I came back to find you searching through my files. Adrian, I can explain. Can you? His voice was quiet. Too quiet. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're investigating me, which suggests you don't trust me, which makes me wonder why you're living in my home. The words hit like a slap. Kate stood, her legs unsteady. Someone sent me a text. About Philadelphia. About Castellane. They said I should ask you what really happened. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. And instead of asking me directly, you decided to snoop through my personal files. I know it was wrong. But Adrian, those articles, the building collapse, the deaths, the connections to organized crime. Are you asking if I'm involved with the Moretti family? I'm asking if you're the man I think you are, or if I've been lying to myself. The silence stretched between them like broken glass. Adrian walked to the window, his back to her, his shoulders rigid. The Philadelphia project was the biggest mistake of my life, he said finally. I was 37, ambitious. Castellane approached me with financing for a mixed-use development that would have doubled my portfolio. I knew his money was dirty. I'm not stupid, but I convinced myself I could use it without getting dirty myself. Kate waited, barely breathing. The building collapse wasn't an accident, Adrian continued, his voice flat. The contractor Castellane insisted we use was cutting corners, using substandard materials. I found out 2 weeks before it happened. I went to Castellane, told him we needed to shut down construction until we could verify structural integrity. He refused. Said we were behind schedule, that delays would cost him too much money. What did you do? I threatened to pull out of the deal entirely, so Castellane had me followed. Found out about a woman I was seeing, a prosecutor actually. He made it very clear that if I didn't play along, she'd have an accident. Adrian's hands clenched on the window frame, so I stayed quiet. And 2 weeks later, 3 men died because I didn't have the spine to stand up to a gangster. The confession hung in the air between them. The investigation should have buried us both, Adrian said. But Castellane had connections, made evidence disappear, paid off witnesses, got the lead investigator to retire early with a very generous pension, and His voice roughened. I let him, because I was terrified of what would happen to Rebecca if I didn't. Rebecca? The prosecutor. We'd been seeing each other for 6 months. I thought. He laughed bitterly. It doesn't matter what I thought. After Philadelphia, she couldn't look at me. Said I'd become everything she fought against. She was right. Kate's throat was tight. What happened to her? She moved to Seattle, married a civil rights attorney, has 2 kids now.
I check on her occasionally, make sure Castellane hasn't gone after her. He hasn't. That was our deal. Your deal? Adrian finally turned to face her.
I spent the next 3 years building leverage against him, buying up his debts, making strategic investments in companies he needed, positioning myself until I had enough power to hurt him without him being able to retaliate. Then I destroyed him, cost him everything he'd built in Philadelphia, made sure everyone in our circles knew he was radioactive. And I made it very clear that if he ever came near Rebecca, I'd finish the job. Kate stared at him. You've been at war with Castellane for 5 years. Yes. And now he knows about me. Yes. Adrian crossed to her, his expression grim. That's what I've been trying to protect you from, Kate. Castellane doesn't forget, doesn't forgive. The moment he saw me claim you at that gala, he started calculating how to use you against me. That's why you were so worried about me becoming a target. I've been worried about you since the day you walked into my office 3 years ago. Adrian's voice was rough. Do you know why I hired you? You were qualified, yes, brilliant, actually. But there were other candidates with more experience. I hired you because you looked at me like I was just a man, not a weapon, not a monster. Just a man who needed a good assistant. Kate's chest ached. Adrian, I'm not a good man, Kate. I've done things, terrible things, to protect what's mine and destroy my enemies. The empire I've built, it's not clean. It's built on leveraging people's weaknesses, on knowing exactly which pressure points to hit. I'm ruthless because the world I operate in doesn't reward mercy. I know who you are. Do you? He cupped her face, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. Because I need you to understand something. What I did to Castellane, that's who I am when someone threatens what's mine. I will burn the world down to keep you safe. I will cross every line, break every rule, do whatever it takes, and I won't feel guilty about it. Kate's hands came up to cover his. I violated your privacy. I went through your files instead of just asking you. That's on me. You had questions. I should have answered them before you had to dig for answers. Why didn't you tell me about Philadelphia? Because I wanted you to see the man I'm trying to be, not the man I was. Adrian's thumb traced her cheekbone. With you, I get to be something different, something better. And I was afraid that if you knew everything, you'd look at me the way Rebecca did, like I was irredeemable. The vulnerability in his voice broke something open in Kate's chest. She pulled him down and kissed him, tasting fear and honesty and desperation. I'm not Rebecca, she said against his mouth. I'm not going to run because you made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. Not like mine. Maybe not. But Adrian, she pulled back to meet his eyes. I need you to promise me something. No more secrets. There's something in your past that could come back to hurt us. I need to know. I can't protect myself if I don't know what I'm protecting myself from. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, no more secrets. And I promise I'll ask instead of snooping. Deal. He kissed her again, deeper this time. When they broke apart, some of the tension had eased from his shoulders. There's something else you should know. About Castellane. Kate's stomach tightened. What? He's been making moves, quiet ones, buying up shares in some of my subsidiary companies. Nothing controlling, but enough to get a seat at certain tables. My lawyers think he's building towards something. Like what? We don't know yet, but Castellane doesn't make moves without a plan. Adrian's jaw tightened. I'm having you followed, security detail 24/7. They'll be discreet, but they'll be there. Adrian, that's, non-negotiable. His voice was firm. You're mine to protect now. That means I do whatever it takes to keep you safe, including things you might not like. Kate wanted to argue, wanted to insist she didn't need bodyguards following her around, but the look in Adrian's eyes stopped her. This was fear talking, real, bone-deep fear that something would happen to her. Okay, she said quietly, but I want to meet them. Know who's watching my back. Relief flickered across his face. Done. I'll set it up for tomorrow. That night, they lay tangled together in bed, the city lights filtering through the windows. Kate traced patterns on Adrian's chest, her mind still churning through everything she'd learned. Tell me about your father, she said quietly. Adrian's hand stilled where it had been stroking her hair. Why? Because I want to know you. The real you. Not just the parts you think I can handle.
He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer.
Then, my father was a self-made man. Grew up in Brooklyn, worked construction until he saved enough to buy his first property. Built an empire from nothing. And he was absolutely ruthless about it. Sounds familiar. Adrian's laugh was dark. I'm my father's son. He taught me everything, how to read people, how to find leverage, how to win at any cost. But he also taught me that love was weakness, that caring about someone gave them power over you. Do you believe that? I did. For a long time, relationships were just transactions for me. Sex without attachment. Companionship with clear boundaries. Nothing that could be used against me. He pulled her closer. And then you walked into my life and made me question everything. Kate's heart was hammering. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know how to do this, Kate. I don't know how to be with someone without trying to control everything. I don't know how to love without possession. But I want to try. For you. The words hung in the air between them, the closest Adrian had come to saying he loved her. We'll figure it out, Kate whispered. Together. The next morning, Kate met her security detail. 2 men, Marcus Reeves, former Secret Service, and David Park, ex-military with a specialty in executive protection. They were professional, efficient, and promised to be invisible unless she needed them. You won't even know we're there, Marcus assured her. Kate doubted that, but she appreciated the effort. The following week brought a new routine. Kate spent her days job hunting, though every interview seemed to end the same way, with polite interest cooling the moment her last position came up. Adrian's name was both blessing and curse. It got her indoors, but it also raised questions she couldn't satisfactorily answer. Why did you leave Wolf Enterprises? One interviewer asked. Personal reasons, Kate said. The interviewer's eyebrows rose. Personal reasons involving Adrian Wolf himself, according to the business journals. There was no good answer to that. Kate left the interview knowing she wouldn't get a call back. By the end of the second week, she'd had 12 interviews and 0 offers. The rejections were polite but firm. We're pursuing other candidates. Your qualifications are impressive, but not quite the right fit. We'll keep your resume on file. Translation: we don't want the liability of hiring Adrian Wolf's girlfriend. Kate was sitting on Adrian's couch, staring at another rejection email, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Kate Lawson? Speaking. My name is Elena Martinez. I'm an investigative journalist with the New York Chronicle. I'm working on a story about Adrian Wolf's business practices, and I was hoping you might be willing to comment. Kate's blood went cold. I have nothing to say. I understand you're in a relationship with Mr. Wolf. That must give you unique insight into how he operates, the deals he makes, the people he... Kate hung up. Her hands were shaking. The phone rang again immediately. Same number. She declined the call and blocked it. Then another call came through. Different number. She let it go to voicemail. By the time Adrian came home that evening, Kate had received 17 calls from various reporters, all asking for comments about Adrian's business practices, his relationship with Castellane, the Philadelphia incident. They're circling, Adrian said grimly after she told him. He'd changed Kate's number within the hour, had his legal team send cease and desist letters to every publication that had called, but they both knew it wouldn't be enough. Castellane's feeding them information, Adrian continued, stirring up the old stories, making sure everyone remembers Philadelphia. He's trying to damage my reputation, hurt my business relationships. Why now? Because I claimed you, because he knows that gives him an opening. Adrian's expression was dark. He's going to try to paint me as a dangerous man, someone who can't be trusted, and he's going to use you as proof that I'm so obsessed with control, I manipulated my own assistant into a relationship. Kate's stomach turned. Is there anything we can do? Write it out. Don't engage with reporters. Let my legal team handle it. He pulled her close. And trust that I won't let him destroy what we have. But Castellane was just getting started. 3 days later, a exposé ran in the Chronicle. The headline made Kate's blood run cold. The Women Behind Adrian Wolf, a Pattern of Control and Manipulation. The article detailed Adrian's past relationships, all of them. The prosecutor from Philadelphia who'd left the city after their relationship ended. A journalist who'd stopped covering him after they dated briefly. An executive from a rival company who'd resigned shortly after they broke up. The implication was clear. Adrian Wolf had a history of using women for personal or professional gain, then discarding them when they were no longer useful. And now Kate was the latest in a long line, The article included quotes from anonymous sources. He's obsessed with control. Everything is a transaction. You're either useful or you're a liability. Kate read it 3 times, her stomach churning. Because the worst part was that some of it rang true. Adrian was controlling. He did view relationships as transactions. He'd told her as much. But he'd also told her he was trying to be different. With her. It's character assassination, Adrian said when he saw the article. His voice was cold with fury. Castellane fed them every piece of information he could dig up. Some of it's true. Some of it's exaggerated. All of it's designed to make me look like a monster. Is any of it true? Kate asked quietly. About the other women? Adrian's jaw tightened. Rebecca, I told you about. The journalist. We dated for 3 months. It ended badly because she found out I'd used information she'd shared to torpedo a competitor's deal. She had every right to be angry. The executive. That was 8 years ago. We had a brief affair. When it ended, she took a position with another company. I didn't force her out. But you did use the journalist's information. Yes. No hesitation. I did. Because at the time, I valued winning more than I valued her trust. Kate absorbed this. And now? Now I value you more than I value anything else, which is exactly what Castellane's counting on. Adrian pulled her into his arms. He knows that if he damages my reputation enough, it'll hurt you too. People will assume you're just another woman I'm using, that there's no genuine feeling, just calculation. So what do? We prove them wrong. Adrian's voice was firm. We show them that what we have is real. That I'm not the man Castellane's painting me to be. But proving it was harder than saying it. Over the next week, the story grew legs. More articles appeared, each one more damaging than the last. Adrian's business relationships started to fracture. 2 major investors pulled out of pending deals. The board called another emergency meeting. And then Kate started getting followed by more than just her security detail. She noticed them on day 3, photographers lurking outside Adrian's building, cameras ready to catch her leaving. They shouted questions as she climbed into the car with Marcus and David. Kate, how long have you been sleeping with Adrian Wolfe? Did he promise you a promotion if you slept with him? Are you pregnant? Is that why you resigned? The questions were invasive and cruel. Kate kept her head down, let Marcus shield her with his body as they got into the car. Welcome to the fishbowl, Marcus said grimly as they pulled away. That night, Kate couldn't sleep. She lay beside Adrian, listening to his breathing, trying to process everything that was happening. Her life had become a circus. She couldn't leave the building without being photographed, couldn't apply for jobs without her relationship being the first thing discussed, couldn't exist without being questioned, and the worst part was knowing it was only going to get worse, because Castellane wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The next attack came from an unexpected direction. Kate was having coffee with her sister when Mara's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression changed. Kate, what is it? Mara turned her phone around. On the screen was a photo, Kate and Adrian at the gala, his hand on her back, his expression possessive. The caption read, Former assistant Kate Lawson cashing in on 3 years of bedroom favors? But that wasn't what made Kate's blood freeze. It was the second photo. One she'd never seen before. One that must have been taken weeks ago, before the gala. Her and Adrian in his office, late at night. The angle was through the window. Someone had photographed them from another building. In the image, Adrian was standing close to her, his hand on her shoulder, both of them looking at his computer screen. It was completely innocent. They'd been reviewing quarterly reports. But the way it was cropped, the way the caption framed it, it looked like something else entirely, like evidence that they'd been having an affair all along. This is bad, Mara said quietly. Kate's hands were shaking as she took the phone. Where did this come from? It's trending on Twitter. Someone posted it this morning, Kate. People are saying... Mara hesitated. They're saying Adrian's been grooming you for years, that he hired you specifically because he wanted to sleep with you. The accusation was so absurd, it should have been laughable. But Kate knew how this worked. The truth didn't matter. The narrative mattered. And right now, the narrative was that she was a naive girl who'd been manipulated by a powerful man. She called Adrian immediately. I saw it, he said before she could speak. His voice was controlled, but she could hear the fury beneath. Legal's already on it. We're going to find out who took that photo and sue them into oblivion. Adrian, this is getting out of control. I know. Maybe, Kate swallowed hard, maybe we should take a break, step back from each other until this dies down. The silence on the other end was deafening.
You want to leave, Adrian said finally. His voice was flat. I didn't say leave. I said take a break. Let things cool off. No. Adrian. No, Kate. We're not doing this. We're not giving Castellane what he wants. We're not proving everyone right by running away from each other. His voice roughened. I told you I don't do halfway. That includes this. You're mine. I'm yours. We face this together, or not at all. Kate closed her eyes. People are saying terrible things. Let them. I don't care what they say. I care about you. He paused. Come home. We'll figure this out. She wanted to. Wanted to run back to the safety of his arms and let him fix everything. But a small part of her, the part that had spent 3 years being professional and competent and independent, rebelled at the idea. I need some time, she said quietly. Just a few hours. To think. Another pause, then. Okay. But Kate. Yeah? Don't run. Please. The vulnerability in his voice nearly broke her. I won't, I promise. After she hung up, Mara reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You okay? I don't know. Kate stared at her coffee. Everything's falling apart. My career, my reputation, my privacy, and for what? A relationship that's barely 3 weeks old? Do you love him? The question hit like a punch. Kate thought about Adrian, the way he looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered, the way he'd opened up about Philadelphia, the way he'd been trying so hard to be different for her. Yes, she admitted, which is probably the stupidest thing I've ever done. Love usually is. Mara's expression was soft. But Kate, you need to ask yourself something. Is he worth this? All of it. The scrutiny, the judgment, the constant attacks. Because it's only going to get worse before it gets better. Kate knew she was right. She knew that staying with Adrian meant signing up for a lifetime of this. Of being photographed and questioned and judged. Of living in a fishbowl where every move was analyzed. But the alternative, walking away from him, going back to being alone, felt impossible. He's worth it, she said quietly. Mara studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. Then you need to fight back. Stop being defensive. Stop hiding. If you and Adrian are the real deal, then show them. How? I don't know, but sitting around letting Castellane control the narrative isn't working. Mara leaned forward. Kate, you're one of the smartest people I know. You didn't get to be Adrian Wolf's executive assistant by being a pushover, so stop acting like one. The words lit something in Kate's chest. Mara was right. She'd been reacting instead of acting, letting other people define her relationship, her choices, her worth. It was time to take control back. She pulled out her phone and called Adrian. Change of plans, she said when he answered. I'm coming home, and we're going to war. Adrian was waiting when Kate walked through the door. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms, holding her like he'd been afraid she wouldn't come back. You said we're going to war, he said against her hair. What did you have in mind? Kate pulled back to look at him. I've been thinking about this all wrong. We've been defensive, hiding, waiting for the attacks to stop. But they won't stop. Not as long as Castellane thinks he can use me to get to you. So what do you suggest? We stop giving him ammunition. We stop acting like we have something to hide. Kate's jaw set. You said Castellane's been making moves, buying shares in your companies. What if we figured out what he's planning and got ahead of it? Adrian's eyes sharpened with interest. You want to go on offense. I want to stop being a victim. I spent 3 years learning how you operate, how you think strategically. Let me use that. She gripped his arms. Adrian, I'm not just some woman you're protecting. I know your business. I know how deals work. Let me help. For a moment, she thought he'd say no, thought his need to control everything, to shield her from the uglier parts of his world, would win out. But then something shifted in his expression. Okay, he said. Let's do this together. They spent the next 2 hours in Adrian's office, spreading out files and financial records. Robert Chen joined them via video call, initially skeptical but warming up when Kate started asking pointed questions about Castellane's recent investments. He's been buying into media companies, Kate observed, studying the pattern. Small stakes, nothing controlling, but enough to have influence. And look at the timing. All of these purchases happened in the last 6 months. He's building a narrative machine, Adrian said slowly. Control the media. Control the story. Exactly. which means the exposés, the photos, all of it, he's been planning this for months. Kate pulled up another document. But there's something else. Look at this pattern of shell companies he's using. They all trace back to the same offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Robert leaned closer to his camera. That's the same account structure he used in Philadelphia. If we can prove he's still using dirty money, we can expose him, Adrian finished. His expression was cold. Kate, how did you spot this? I reviewed every financial filing you had on Castellane, cross-referenced the company names with corporate registries. She met his gaze. You taught me to see patterns, to look for the details everyone else misses. Pride flickered across Adrian's face. We need to trace those shell companies, find out where the money's really coming from. That's going to take time, Robert warned, and it's legally complicated. If Castellane catches wind that we're investigating, he'll escalate, Kate said, which means we need to be prepared for things to get worse before they get better. She had no idea how prophetic those words would be. The next morning, Kate woke to her phone buzzing incessantly. She grabbed it, still half asleep, and saw dozens of notifications. Texts from Mara, missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize, news alerts flooding her screen. Adrian, she said, shaking him awake, something's happened. They found out what within minutes. Another article had dropped, this one more damaging than all the others combined. The headline made Kate's blood run cold. Executive assistant or corporate spy? Kate Lawson's access to Wolf Enterprises raises questions. The article suggested that Kate had been feeding confidential information to competitors during her time as Adrian's assistant. It cited anonymous sources claiming she'd been seen meeting with executives from rival companies, that she'd had access to sensitive files that later turned up in competitors' hands. This is insane, Kate said, her hands shaking as she read. Adrian, you know I would never... I know. His voice was hard. This is Castellane. He's trying to destroy your credibility, make it look like you can't be trusted. But if people believe this, it doesn't just hurt me, it hurts you. If they think your assistant was leaking information, then my judgment is compromised. My security is compromised. My entire operation looks incompetent. Adrian's jaw was tight. He's trying to take us both down. Kate's phone rang. It was Robert. Have you seen it? He asked without preamble. We're looking at it now. Kate, I need to ask you this directly. Did you ever share confidential information with anyone outside the company? The question stung, even though she understood why he had to ask. No, never. Not even accidentally? A casual conversation that might have revealed something? Robert, I signed an NDA the day I was hired. I took that seriously. I never discussed Adrian's business with anyone. Her voice hardened. This is a fabrication. Someone's setting me up. I believe you, but we need to prove it. Robert's voice was grim. I'm going to need access to your personal emails, your phone records, anything that can demonstrate you weren't communicating with competitors. Kate's stomach turned at the invasion of privacy, but she understood the necessity. Whatever you need. After the call ended, Adrian pulled her close. We're going to fight this. We're going to prove it's a lie. What if we can't? What if Castellane's manufactured enough evidence that then we'll destroy him first? Adrian's voice was cold with fury. I've been holding back, trying to play this carefully, but if he wants war, he'll get it. The words should have scared her. Instead, they lit something fierce in Kate's chest. She was tired of being a target, tired of hiding. If Castellane wanted to paint her as a villain, then maybe it was time to show him what that really looked like. Tell me about the Philadelphia deal, she said. Everything. Not just what you told me before, all of it. Every detail, every person involved, every piece of leverage Castellane has. Adrian studied her face. Why? Because if we're going to take him down, I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. No more protecting me from the ugly parts, Adrian. I need the full picture. So he told her. The whole story, holding nothing back. The bribes to city officials that had greased the permits. The witnesses who'd been paid to change their testimony. The Moretti family connections that ran deeper than Kate had realized. Castellane wasn't just using mob money. He was actively laundering it through construction projects. The building collapse wasn't the first time people died because of corners he cut, Adrian said. It was just the first time it was public enough that he couldn't completely bury it. There were two other incidents, a warehouse fire in Newark that killed 4 people, and a residential building with faulty wiring that caused a fatal electrocution. Both times, investigations were shut down before they could trace back to him. Kate felt sick. How do you know this? Because I've spent 5 years digging into every deal he's ever made, building a file, waiting for the right moment to use it. And that moment is now. Yes. Adrian's expression was grim. But Kate, if we do this, if we really go after him, it's going to get dangerous. Castellane doesn't just destroy reputations, he destroys people. The investigator from Philadelphia, who took his money? Dead 3 years later. Car accident that was ruled mechanical failure, but the timing was suspicious. A journalist who was digging into his Moretti connections? Disappeared. They found her body 6 months later. Kate's hands went cold. You think he had them killed? I think Victor Castellane is connected to people who solve problems permanently, and I think the moment we threaten to expose him, we become problems that need solving. The weight of it settled over Kate like a shroud. This wasn't just corporate warfare anymore. This was life and death. We could go to the FBI, she said, turn over everything you have, and hope they move fast enough to protect us before Castellane retaliates? The FBI builds cases, Kate. That takes time. Time we might not have. Adrian gripped her shoulders. I need you to understand what you're signing up for. If we do this, there's no backing out. We commit completely or we walk away now. Kate thought about everything she'd lost already. Her job, her reputation, her privacy. Thought about the photographers camped outside, the articles calling her a corporate spy, the way former colleagues wouldn't return her calls. She thought about Mara's warning that she was losing herself. But she also thought about the 3 construction workers who died in Philadelphia, about the other victims of Castellane's greed, about the fact that if they didn't stop him, he'd just keep destroying people. I'm in, she said. All the way. Relief and something darker, satisfaction maybe, crossed Adrian's face. Then we need to move fast. Robert's already working on tracing those shell companies. I need you to do something else. What? Go through every meeting I had with Castellane, every email, every phone call, every interaction over the past 5 years. Look for patterns. Times when he might have slipped up, revealed something about his operations. You're better at seeing those connections than anyone I know. It was a massive undertaking. 5 years of correspondence, hundreds of interactions. But Kate nodded. I'll start now. She spent the next 3 days buried in files. Adrian had kept meticulous records, transcripts of phone calls, copies of emails, notes from in-person meetings. Kate read through all of it, looking for anything that might give them leverage. On the 4th day, she found it. It was buried in a transcript from 2 years ago, a phone call where Castellane had mentioned a property development in Atlantic City. The comment was casual, almost throwaway, but something about it caught Kate's attention. She cross-referenced it with Adrian's other files and found a pattern. Castellane had referenced that Atlantic City property 3 times over 18 months, each time in the context of needing to move money quickly, each time right before a major payment came due on one of his other projects. He's using it as a funnel, Kate said, showing Adrian her findings. Look at the timing. Every time he needs to make a large payment that might attract IRS attention, money flows through the Atlantic City development first. He's washing it clean before it touches his main accounts. Adrian's eyes lit up. If we can prove that property is just a front, we can trace the money back to its source. And if that source is the Moretti family, we have him. Adrian pulled her into a fierce kiss. Kate, this is brilliant. How did you even spot this? You taught me to pay attention to the details everyone else ignores. She grinned. Also, I spent 3 years scheduling your meetings. I know how these people think. They turned their findings over to Robert, who brought in a forensic accountant. Within 48 hours, they had confirmation. The Atlantic City property was a shell. No real development, just paper transactions designed to obscure the flow of money. And the money was coming from 3 LLCs that traced back to known Moretti family associates. We take this to the FBI, Robert said during their video call. This is evidence of money laundering, real actionable evidence. And Castellane? Kate asked. Goes down. Hard. Robert's expression was satisfied. The moment the FBI starts investigating, his whole operation crumbles. The media companies, the shell accounts, all of it. He'll be too busy defending himself to come after you. It should have felt like victory. But Kate couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Castellane had been too careful for too long to leave evidence this easy to find. What if it's a trap? She said slowly. Adrian and Robert both looked at her. What do you mean? Adrian asked. Think about it. Castellane's been playing this game for decades. He's smart enough to hide his connections to the Moretti family. So why leave a trail this obvious? Kate pulled up the files again. What if he wanted us to find this? What if he's setting us up? For what purpose? I don't know, but... She scrolled through the dates again, and something clicked. Adrian, when did you start investigating Castellane seriously? After Philadelphia? About 3 years ago. Right after I took you on as my assistant, actually. I needed someone I could trust to help me organize the information. Kate's blood went cold. 3 years ago. And that's when these Atlantic City transactions started. What if he knew you were building a case? What if he created this trail deliberately so that when you found it and turned it over to the FBI, it would lead back to something else, something that implicates you? The room went silent. She's right, Robert said finally. If Castellane knew Adrian was investigating him, he could have spent the last 3 years building a counter case. Evidence that makes Adrian look complicit in the money laundering. Adrian's expression had gone dark. Which means if we go to the FBI with this, we might be handing them evidence against you instead of against him. Kate felt sick. It's the perfect trap. We do his work for him. So what do we do? Robert asked. Kate and Adrian looked at each other. They were trapped. If they went to the FBI, they risked implicating Adrian. If they didn't, Castellane would keep attacking, keep destroying their lives piece by piece. We need leverage of our own, Kate said. Something Castellane can't afford to have exposed. Something that makes mutually assured destruction the only option. And how do we get that? Kate thought about everything she'd learned over the past few weeks, about Castellane's patterns, his connections, his vulnerabilities, and suddenly she had an idea. The journalist who disappeared, she said, the one who was investigating his Moretti connections. Did she publish anything before she vanished? Adrian frowned. A few articles. Nothing substantial enough to damage him. Why? Because journalists don't just investigate. They build sources, they gather evidence, and they back it up. Kate was talking faster now, the pieces clicking together. If she was any good, she had a backup of everything she found. Somewhere safe, somewhere that would survive even if she didn't. You think her research still exists? I think it's worth finding out. Kate met Adrian's gaze. What was her name? Sarah Chen. Adrian's expression shifted. Wait, Chen, you don't think Robert's last name is Chen? Marcus Chen is his brother. It's not exactly an uncommon name, but Kate turned to the screen where Robert was still on the call. Robert, did you have any family members who were journalists? Robert's face had gone pale. My cousin, Sarah. She disappeared 4 years ago. How did you... She was investigating Castellane, Adrian said. I didn't make the connection. I'm sorry, Robert. You think she found something on him? Robert's voice was tight. You think that's why she disappeared? I think she found something worth killing over, Kate said gently. And I think she was smart enough to hide it before Castellane got to her. Robert, did Sarah have any places she considered safe? Anywhere she might have left important documents? Robert was quiet for a long moment. She had a storage unit, under a fake name. She told me about it once, said it was her insurance policy. I never understood what she meant. Where is it? Queens. I can get you the address. After the call ended, Adrian turned to Kate. This is a long shot. I know, but it's the best shot we have. She grabbed her jacket. Let's go. Kate, if Castellane figures out what we're looking for, then we'd better get there first. They took Marcus and David with them, the 2 security guards flanking them as they drove to Queens. The storage facility was in a rundown area, the kind of place where you paid cash and didn't ask questions. Robert had given them the unit number and the name Sarah had used. Kate's hands were shaking as Adrian cut the lock. Sarah had been gone 4 years. The rental was long overdue, but apparently no one had bothered to clean it out. Inside, they found boxes. Dozens of them. Files, photographs, recorded interviews. Sarah Chen had been thorough. Look at this, Adrian said, holding up a folder. Financial records. Connections between Castellane and the Moretti family, going back 15 years. Kate was digging through another box. Phone logs. Email printouts. Adrian, this is everything. This is enough to... She stopped. At the bottom of the box was a videotape. Old-fashioned VHS, labeled simply insurance. "We need to see what's on this," she said. They took everything back to Adrian's penthouse. It took some doing to find a VHS player, but Robert managed to have one delivered within the hour. When they played the tape, they found Sarah Chen staring back at them. She looked tired, scared, but determined. "If you're watching this, I'm probably dead," she said on the recording. "My name is Sarah Chen. I'm an investigative journalist, and I've spent the last 2 years documenting the criminal activities of Victor Castellan and his connections to the Moretti crime family. Everything I found is in the storage unit: financial records, testimony from witnesses, proof of money laundering, bribery, and evidence that suggests Castellan was involved in at least 3 murders to cover up his activities." Kate's hand found Adrian's. They watched as Sarah laid out the case, methodical and damning. She named names, showed documents, explained how the money flowed, and then she said something that made Kate's blood freeze. "I'm making this tape because I've been approached by someone who wants to help me expose Castellan. His name is Adrian Wolfe. He claims Castellan destroyed his reputation in Philadelphia, and he wants revenge. I want to believe him, but I've learned not to trust anyone in this world. So, Mr. Wolfe, if you're watching this, if something happened to me and you're using my research, I hope you do the right thing. I hope you take this evidence and you burn Castellan's empire to the ground, and I hope you're not just another predator waiting for your moment to strike." The video ended. Adrian was very still beside her. "She didn't trust me." "Can you blame her?" Kate asked softly. "She'd been investigating dangerous men for years. Of course she was careful. I could have protected her. If she'd just told me what she had, she didn't know you, and she was right to be cautious." Kate squeezed his hand. "But Adrian, we have everything now. Everything we need to take Castellan down." He looked at her, and there was something raw in his expression. "Sarah died because she tried to expose him. If we do this, we could die too." "I know." Kate's jaw set. "But we could also win. We could stop him from hurting anyone else." "You're willing to risk your life for this." "I'm willing to risk my life for a lot of things. Justice. Doing what's right." She cupped his face. "For you, for us, for the chance to build something that isn't tainted by men like Castellan." Adrian pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." They spent the next week organizing Sarah's research, building an ironclad case. Robert brought in lawyers, real ones this time, the kind who specialized in RICO cases and organized crime. They reviewed everything, made copies, set up fail-safes. "If anything happens to any of us, this all goes public," Robert explained. "To the FBI, to the press, to every regulatory agency we can find. Castellan can't kill his way out of this, it's too big." "So we make him an offer," Kate said. "Back off or we release everything." "It's not just backing off," Adrian corrected. "He has to dismantle his entire operation, sell off his companies, disappear. And if he ever comes after any of us again, all of this goes live." "He'll never agree to that," Robert said. "He will if the alternative is spending the rest of his life in federal prison." Adrian's voice was cold. "Trust me, Castellan's many things, but he's not stupid. He'll choose survival." They arranged a meeting. Neutral Ground, a restaurant Castellan owned, ironically enough. Kate insisted on being there, despite Adrian's protests. "You don't need to see this," he said. "Yes, I do. He tried to destroy me. I want to watch him lose." So Kate sat beside Adrian in a private dining room, Marcus and David stationed outside, when Victor Castellan walked in. He looked older than his photos, weathered, but his eyes were still sharp, calculating. "Adrian," he said, settling into a chair across from them, "and the lovely Kate Lawson, the woman who started all of this." "I didn't start anything," Kate said evenly. "You did, when you decided to use me as leverage." Castellan smiled. "Leverage? Such an interesting word. Tell me, Ms. Lawson, do you know what Adrian did to the last woman who got close to him? Rebecca Martinez, the prosecutor from Philadelphia. He used her, manipulated her, and when she became inconvenient, he discarded her." "I know all about Rebecca," Kate said. "Adrian told me everything, which is more than you ever did for the families of the people who died in Philadelphia." Something flickered in Castellan's expression. "So you think you're different, special, that Adrian actually cares about you?" "I know he does, just like I know you're about to lose everything you've built." Kate slid a USB drive across the table. That contains copies of financial records documenting your money laundering operation, testimony from witnesses, and a video recording made by Sarah Chen before you had her killed. Castellane's face went very still. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Adrian's voice was cold. We have everything, Victor. Every deal, every bribe, every connection to the Moretti family. And we have copies in 6 different locations with instructions to release it all if anything happens to us. You're bluffing. Try me. Adrian leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sell off your companies, all of them. You're going to disappear, retire to the Caymans, I don't care. But you're done. And if you ever come near Kate, near me, near anyone I care about, that USB drive goes to the FBI and every news outlet in the country. And if I refuse, then it goes public anyway. And you spend the rest of your life in federal prison. If the Morettis don't kill you first for being sloppy enough to get caught. Castelaine sat back, studying them both. Kate could see him calculating, weighing his options. You've become ruthless, he said finally, looking at Adrian. I remember when you were just a kid trying to make a name for yourself. Now look at you, willing to threaten a man's life over a woman. Not just a woman, my woman. And yes, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Adrian's expression was hard. You taught me that, Victor. You taught me that in this world, you destroy your enemies before they destroy you. So thank you for the lesson. Castelaine stood. I'll need time to consider. You have 48 hours, Kate said. After that, we go public. After he left, Kate let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Do you think he'll do it? He will, Adrian said. Because he knows we're not bluffing. And because for all his talk, Victor Castelaine values his freedom more than his pride. But they were both wrong. 48 hours later, Castelaine's response came in the form of a car bomb. Kate was leaving the building with Marcus when the explosion ripped through the parking garage. The blast knocked her backward, her ears ringing, smoke filling her lungs. Marcus was on top of her instantly, shielding her with his body. Stay down, he shouted. Through the ringing in her ears, Kate heard screams. Car alarms, the sprinkler system activating, and then Adrian was there, pulling her up, his face white with terror. Are you hurt? He demanded, hands running over her, checking for injuries. I'm okay. I'm okay. Kate's legs were shaking. What happened? Someone planted a bomb. It was your car, Kate. If you'd been 30 seconds earlier, he didn't finish, didn't need to. They both knew what would have happened. Marcus was already on his phone calling the police. Calling Adrian's security team. David appeared from nowhere, weapon drawn, scanning for threats. We need to get you both out of here, David said. Now, before they try again. They were hustled into another car, driven to a safe house Robert had prepared. Kate sat in shock, watching the city blur past, trying to process that someone had just tried to kill her. This is Castelaine, Adrian said. His voice was shaking with fury. He's not going to negotiate, he's going to kill us. So we release everything, Kate said. Right now, we go public. And he kills us anyway. Kate, he's already shown he's willing to murder us. Evidence doesn't matter if we're dead. Kate stared at him. So what do we do? Adrian's expression was dark, dangerous. We finish this, tonight. Adrian, I'm not letting him hurt you again. I'm not giving him another chance. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Robert, I need you to do exactly what I say. What Adrian planned wasn't legal, wasn't safe, wasn't anything Kate should have agreed to, but someone had just tried to kill her, and she was done being a victim. Tell me what you need, she said. Adrian looked at her, and there was something fierce and possessive in his eyes. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Kate thought about everything they'd been through, the risks they'd taken, the secrets they'd shared, the way Adrian had chosen her over everything else, over and over again. Yes, she said. I trust you. Good. He kissed her, hard and desperate. Because we're about to do something that changes everything, and there's no going back after this. The safe house was a penthouse in Brooklyn that Robert's family owned, empty and sterile and nothing like home. Kate paced the length of the living room while Adrian made calls in the bedroom, his voice low and intense. Marcus and David were posted at the door, weapons visible now. No more pretending this was just corporate warfare. Someone wanted them dead. Kate's hands were still shaking. She kept seeing the flash of the explosion, kept feeling the concussive force of the blast, 30 seconds earlier, and she would have been in that car when it detonated. 30 seconds, and Adrian would be planning her funeral instead of whatever he was planning now. The bedroom door opened. Adrian emerged looking like he'd aged a decade in the past hour. "It's done," he said. "What's done?" "Robert's releasing everything to the FBI. Sarah Chen's files, the financial records, all of it. By morning, Castellane will be the target of a federal investigation." Kate stared at him. "But you said if we did that, he'd come after us anyway." "He already did. The bomb proves he's not interested in negotiation." Adrian's expression was hard. "So we're not negotiating. We're destroying him completely, and we're disappearing until it's safe to come back." "Disappearing where?" "I have a property in the Turks and Caicos. Remote, secure, under a shell company Castellane doesn't know about." He crossed to her, hands settling on her shoulders. "We leave tonight. Stay gone for a few months while the FBI builds their case and Castellane's world burns down around him." Kate's mind was racing. "What about your business? Your board will—" "Robert's taking over as interim CEO. The board approved it an hour ago." Adrian's jaw was tight. "I'm stepping back, Kate, from all of it, because staying means putting you in danger, and I won't do that. You're giving up everything. Your company, your reputation. I'm choosing you." He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "I already lost 3 years with you because I was too much of a coward to admit what I wanted. I'm not losing you now because I'm too stubborn to walk away from a company." Kate felt something crack open in her chest. "Adrian, I love you." The words came out rough, like he was tearing them from somewhere deep. "I should have said it weeks ago. Should have said it that first night. I love you, Kate, more than I've ever loved anyone. More than I thought I was capable of. And I will burn down everything I've built if that's what it takes to keep you safe." Tears were streaming down Kate's face. "You can't just give up your entire life for me. Watch me." He pulled her close, his arms banding around her. "Kate, you are my life. Everything else is just noise." She kissed him then, desperate and grateful and terrified, because she loved him too. Loved him so much it felt like drowning, like falling, like every cliché she'd ever rolled her eyes at. She'd spent 3 years trying not to feel this, trying to maintain professional distance, and it had all been pointless. She'd been his from the moment he'd looked at her like she mattered. "I love you too," she whispered against his mouth. "And I'm scared out of my mind." "Good. That makes 2 of us." They left within the hour. A car to a private airfield. A plane Robert had chartered under yet another shell company. Kate watched the city disappear below them, everything she'd known growing smaller and smaller until it was just lights in the darkness. "What happens when we come back?" she asked. Adrian was silent for a moment. "I don't know. The FBI investigation will take time, months probably. If they can make the RICO charges stick, Castellane goes away for life. But if he manages to wriggle free, we'll deal with it." Kate laced her fingers through his. "Together." "Together," he agreed. The house in Turks and Caicos was beautiful in a way that felt unreal. White sand beaches, water so blue it hurt to look at, and a level of isolation that should have felt peaceful, but instead felt like exile. Kate tried to settle in, tried to make it feel like a vacation instead of hiding from a man who wanted them dead, but the fear was constant. She jumped at unexpected sounds, couldn't sleep without checking that the doors were locked, woke up gasping from nightmares about explosions and Sarah Chen's dead eyes staring from a video screen. "You need to talk about it," Adrian said one morning, finding her on the beach at dawn. "I'm fine." "You're not sleeping. You barely eat, Kate. You almost died. That's not something you just get over." She turned to look at him. "How did you do it?" "After Philadelphia. After people died because of choices you made. How did you keep going?" Adrian sat beside her in the sand. "Honestly, I didn't, not for a long time. I threw myself into work, built walls, convinced myself that if I was ruthless enough, calculating enough, I could control everything and no one would get hurt again." He picked up a shell, turning it over in his hands. "But that was a lie. You can't control everything. Bad things happen anyway. The only choice is whether you let it destroy you or whether you use it to become something different." I keep thinking about Sarah Chen, about how she spent years building that case and it got her killed. And now we're using her work to take down Castellane, but she's still dead. It doesn't feel like winning. It's not winning, it's surviving. Sometimes that's all you get. Adrian pulled her close. But Kate, Sarah chose to fight. She knew the risks, and she did it anyway because she thought it mattered. We're honoring that choice by finishing what she started. Kate wanted to believe him, wanted to think that justice for Sarah, for the construction workers in Philadelphia, for everyone Castellane had destroyed, somehow made the fear worth it. But mostly she just felt tired. The days blurred together. Adrian worked remotely, video calls with Robert to manage the transition of power. Kate tried to figure out what came next. She couldn't go back to being his assistant, couldn't imagine working in corporate America again after everything that had happened. So she started writing. An account of everything they'd uncovered, everything Castellane had done. Not for publication, not yet, but because she needed to make sense of it all. 2 weeks into their exile, Robert called with news. The FBI raided Castellane's offices this morning, he said, his face on the video screen tight with satisfaction. They're also executing search warrants on his properties, his associates, his shell companies. It's happening, Adrian. They're taking him down. Have they arrested him? Adrian asked. Not yet. He's lawyered up, claiming he's being persecuted. But the evidence is solid. They'll get him. Robert paused. There's something else. The bomb that almost killed Kate. They traced it back to a known Moretti associate. The FBI is using that as additional evidence of Castellane's criminal connections. Kate felt sick. So it was definitely him. Without question, which means you both need to stay exactly where you are until he's in custody. The Morettis aren't going to be happy about their money launderer getting arrested. Things could get messy before they get better. After the call ended, Kate stood on the balcony looking out at the ocean. Adrian joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. We did it, he said quietly. We actually did it. It doesn't feel like I thought it would. What did you think it would feel like? I don't know, triumphant, vindicated? Kate leaned back against him. Instead, I just feel exhausted and scared that this isn't over, that Castellane will find some way out of this and come after us anyway. Then we'll deal with it, same as we've dealt with everything else. Adrian pressed a kiss to her temple. Kate, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in his tone made her turn to face him. What? When I stepped down as CEO, I did more than just hand control to Robert. I restructured my holdings, set up trusts, made arrangements. He took her hands. Half of everything I own is now in your name. Kate's breath caught. Adrian, you can't. I already did. It's done. Irrevocable. His expression was intense. If something happens to me, you're protected. You'll never have to worry about money, about security, about anything. And if something happens to both of us, he swallowed hard. I set up a foundation, in Sarah Chen's name, to investigate corporate corruption and support journalists doing dangerous work. Her research, her sacrifice, it won't be forgotten. Tears were burning Kate's eyes. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Because you were right. Sarah died trying to do the right thing. The least we can do is make sure her work continues. He cupped her face. And Kate, I need you to know, if the FBI can't make the charges stick, if Castellane walks, I'm not going back. I'm not putting you in that world again. We stay here or we go somewhere else, but we don't go back to New York. You'd really give up everything? I already have. He said it simply, without regret. The question is whether you can live with that. Because I know how hard you worked to build your career. I know what you sacrificed, and I'm asking you to sacrifice more. Kate thought about her old life, the woman she'd been 4 months ago, ambitious and driven and so determined to prove herself. That woman felt like a stranger now. The Kate who'd walked into Adrian's office every morning with perfect coffee and the Wall Street Journal, who'd scheduled meetings and managed crises and kept her feelings locked down tight, she was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone who'd been nearly killed by a car bomb, someone who'd helped take down a criminal empire, someone who'd chosen love over safety and would probably make that choice again. I don't know who I am anymore, she admitted. I used to know exactly what I wanted. Now I don't even know what comes next. Then we figure it out together. Adrian pulled her close. No plans, no strategies. We just exist for a while. Let ourselves breathe. It sounded impossibly simple and impossibly complicated. 4 weeks after they'd fled New York, Kate woke up nauseous. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick, retching until her stomach was empty and her hands were shaking. Kate? Adrian was in the doorway, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? I think it was something I ate. But even as she said it, Kate's mind was racing. When was the last time she'd had her period? She tried to remember, to count back, but everything was a blur of stress and fear and, oh no. Adrian, she said slowly, I need you to go into town, to a pharmacy. He must have seen something in her expression because he didn't ask questions, just nodded and left. An hour later, Kate stared at 3 positive pregnancy tests lined up on the bathroom counter. Her hands were shaking. Her mind was blank with shock. She was pregnant. She was pregnant with Adrian's child in the middle of hiding from a man who wanted them dead, with no idea when they could go home or what came next or how to even begin processing this. Kate? Adrian's voice from the bedroom. Did you find what you needed? She walked out holding one of the tests. Adrian took one look at her face, then at the stick in her hand, and went very still. Is that... I'm pregnant. The words came out flat. I'm pregnant, and we're in hiding, and everything is a disaster, and I don't know what to do. Adrian crossed to her in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. For a long moment, he just held her while Kate tried to remember how to breathe. Are you okay? He asked finally. I don't know. Adrian, this is terrible timing. We're not safe. We don't even know if we can go home. How can we bring a baby into this? Hey, look at me. He tilted her face up. This is scary. I know it's scary. But Kate, we're going to be okay. All 3 of us. You don't know that. You're right. I don't. His thumb brushed away tears she hadn't realized were falling. But I know that I love you, and I know that I will do everything in my power to protect you and our child. And I know that we've survived everything else thrown at us. We'll survive this too. What if Castellane? Then we make sure he can't touch us. We stay here as long as it takes. We build a life somewhere else if we have to. Kate, I don't care where we are or what we have to do. I'm not letting anything happen to you. The fierce certainty in his voice made something unclench in Kate's chest. She thought about the life growing inside her. A child. Their child. It was terrifying and overwhelming and completely unplanned. It was also theirs. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. Adrian pressed his forehead to hers, but we're scared together. That's how this works, remember? Kate let herself lean into him, let herself feel the fear and the hope and the complete insanity of their situation. Pregnant, in hiding, with a man she'd fallen in love with despite every reason not to. Her sister was going to have a field day with this. The thought made her laugh, slightly hysterical. Adrian pulled back to look at her. What? Mara. She's going to say I told you so about everything. Kate wiped her eyes. And she'll be right. This is insane. All of it. 4 months ago, I was an executive assistant with a boring life and a clear path forward. Now I'm pregnant with a billionaire's baby while hiding from the mob. When you put it that way, it does sound ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Kate kissed him. But I wouldn't change it. Any of it. Even the terrifying parts. Even the car bomb? Okay, I'd change the car bomb, but the rest... She placed her hand over her still flat stomach. The rest I'm keeping. Adrian's hand covered hers, his expression softening in a way she'd never seen before. We're having a baby. We're having a baby, Kate confirmed. And despite everything, despite the fear and uncertainty, she felt something like joy starting to bloom in her chest. 2 days later, Robert called with the news they'd been waiting for. Castellane's been arrested, he said, barely containing his excitement. Federal agents picked him up this morning. Multiple charges, money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder. The DA says they have enough evidence to put him away for life. Kate felt her knees go weak. Adrian caught her, steadying her as they both processed the words. It's over? Kate asked. It's over, Robert confirmed. The Moretti connections are being investigated separately. The whole thing's falling apart. Castellane's finished. After the call ended, Kate and Adrian stood on their balcony overlooking the ocean. The sunset was painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, beautiful and surreal. We can go home, Adrian said quietly. Kate thought about New York, about the penthouse that had never quite felt like hers, about the world of corporate warfare and ruthless ambition, about photographers and scrutiny and the fishbowl of being Adrian Wolfe's girlfriend. Do you want to? She asked. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Part of me wants to go back, prove that Castellane didn't win, that we didn't run.
But another part, he pulled her closer. Another part of me wants to stay here, build something new, something that isn't about power or control or winning at any cost. What would that look like? I don't know. Maybe I consult. Maybe I invest in small businesses instead of corporate empires. Maybe I actually learn how to relax. He smiled slightly. What about you? What do you want? Kate thought about it, really thought about it. I want our baby to grow up safe. I want to write. Not just about Castellane, but about everything. The things people don't talk about, the gray areas. She looked up at him. And I want to be with you, wherever that is. Then we'll figure it out, together. Adrian's hand found her stomach again. All three of us. They did go back to New York eventually, but not immediately, and not to their old lives. Adrian sold most of his holdings in Wolf Enterprises, keeping just enough shares to have a voice, but not enough to control. Robert took over permanently as CEO and actually seemed to enjoy it. The board grumbled but accepted the transition, especially when Adrian announced he was redirecting his energy toward the Sarah Chen Foundation for Investigative Journalism. Kate wrote, first an account of the Castellane investigation, which she sold to a major publisher, then op-eds about corporate corruption and power dynamics in business. She became a voice for the invisible people, the assistants, the low-level employees, the ones who saw everything but were never asked their opinion. She was good at it, better than she'd been at scheduling meetings. They moved to a brownstone in Brooklyn, something smaller and warmer than the Tribeca penthouse, something that felt like a home instead of a showroom. Marcus and David stayed on, though their roles shifted from bodyguards to something more like family. David taught Kate self-defense. Marcus helped Adrian learn to cook, which was hilarious and occasionally resulted in smoke alarms. Mara visited constantly once Kate started showing, full of opinions about everything from nursery colors to parenting books. She and Adrian had a relationship best described as wary allies. Mara would never quite forgive him for the chaos he'd brought into Kate's life, but she couldn't deny that he loved her sister fiercely. The trial was brutal. Kate had to testify about the bomb, about the investigation, about everything they'd uncovered. Castellane's lawyers tried to paint her as a spurned employee out for revenge. Adrian's past relationships were dragged through the media again. There were days when Kate wanted to quit, to walk away and never think about Castellane again. But then she'd think about Sarah Chen, about the construction workers in Philadelphia, about all the people Castellane had destroyed in his climb to power, and she'd go back to court and tell the truth. In the end, Victor Castellane was convicted on 14 counts, including racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and obstruction of justice. The judge sentenced him to 45 years in federal prison. He'd be 92 when he got out, if he lived that long. Kate was 7 months pregnant when the verdict came down. She sat beside Adrian in the courtroom, her hand in his, and felt something finally settle in her chest. It was over. Really, truly over. How do you feel? Adrian asked as they left the courthouse. Kate thought about it. Relieved, exhausted, ready to be done with all of this. Me too. He placed a hand on her swollen belly. Ready to meet her? They'd found out they were having a girl 3 weeks ago. Kate still couldn't quite process it. A daughter. A tiny human who would have Adrian's eyes and Kate's stubbornness and no idea how complicated the world was. Terrified, Kate admitted. But yes, ready. Their daughter arrived 4 weeks later, small and perfect and absolutely furious about being born. Kate held her and cried, overwhelmed by the impossible love that hit her the moment she saw that tiny face. She's beautiful, Adrian said, his voice rough with emotion. Kate, she's perfect. She's screaming. She gets that from you. Kate laughed despite her exhaustion. What should we name her? They'd been debating names for months without settling on anything. But now, looking at their daughter's scrunched-up face, Kate knew. Sarah, she said. Sarah Rebecca. For the women who should have gotten their happy endings. Adrian's eyes were wet. Perfect. She's perfect. Sarah Rebecca Wolf came home to a house full of people who loved her. Marcus cried when he held her. David bought out half a toy store. Robert showed up with a trust fund already established. Mara took approximately 700 photos and immediately started a group chat to share them. Kate's father, who she hadn't spoken to in 15 years, sent flowers and a card. She threw both away without reading the message. Some bridges stayed burned, and that was okay. But mostly, Kate marveled at how her life had transformed.
A year ago, she'd been invisible, just another assistant in a sea of professionals. Now she was a mother, a writer, a woman who'd helped take down a criminal empire. Now she was loved. Wholly and completely loved. Adrian proposed on a random Tuesday when Sarah was 3 months old. No grand gesture, no elaborate plan. Just the two of them in their kitchen while their daughter napped upstairs, and Adrian getting down on one knee with a ring he'd apparently been carrying for weeks. "I know we did everything backwards," he said. "Job, relationship, moving in, baby, and now this. But Kate, I want to marry you. Not because we're supposed to, not because of Sarah, but because I want everyone to know that you're mine and I'm yours. Officially, legally, forever." Kate looked at this man who'd claimed her in front of 200 people and never looked back, who'd given up his company to keep her safe, who'd learned to change diapers and walk their screaming baby at 3 in the morning, and looked at Kate like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. "Yes," she said. "Obviously, yes." They got married in a small ceremony 6 months later. Nothing like the corporate galas they'd once attended, just family and close friends in the brownstones garden, Sarah in a tiny dress fussing in Mara's arms, and Marcus officiating because he'd gotten ordained online as a joke, and they decided why not. Adrian cried during his vows. So did Kate. They were messy and human and imperfect, and the wedding reflected that. The cake tilted, the flower arrangements wilted in the heat. Sarah spit up on Adrian's suit 10 minutes before the ceremony. It was perfect. "I love you," Adrian said as they danced in their living room later that night. Sarah finally asleep upstairs, guests departed. "I will love you for the rest of my life, even when you're being stubborn and refusing to let me help with things, even when you're telling me I'm being too controlling, even when—" "I get it," Kate interrupted, smiling. "You love me. I love you too. All of you, even the controlling parts." "Even the parts that ruined your career?" "You didn't ruin my career. You changed it into something better." She pulled back to look at him. "Adrian, I'm happier now than I've ever been. Yes, the past year was terrifying. Yes, parts of it were awful. But it brought me here. To you, to Sarah, to this life we built together." "No regrets?" Kate thought about the question seriously, about everything she'd lost and everything she'd gained, about the woman she'd been and the woman she'd become. "No regrets," she said firmly. "Not a single one." Years later, when Sarah was old enough to ask questions, Kate would tell her daughter the story. Not the sanitized version, not the fairy tale, but the truth. About how her parents met, about the risks they took, about how love was messy and complicated and sometimes meant choosing each other over everything else. She'd tell Sarah about the 3 construction workers in Philadelphia who died because people in power cut corners. About Sarah Chen, the journalist who gave her life to expose corruption. About how doing the right thing was often terrifying and costly, but necessary anyway. And she'd tell her daughter that she was named after 2 brave women and that she had a responsibility to live up to that legacy. But for now, Kate danced in her husband's arms in the home they'd built together, their daughter sleeping upstairs, and let herself just be happy. She'd earned it. They both had. The scars remained. Kate still jumped at unexpected sounds sometimes, still had nightmares about explosions. Adrian still struggled with wanting to control everything, with the fear that something would happen to the people he loved. They went to therapy, both individually and together. They fought sometimes, usually about Adrian being overprotective or Kate being too stubborn to accept help. But they also laughed. They built a life that was theirs, not defined by corporate empires or family expectations or what other people thought they should be. Adrian learned to cook without burning things. Kate published her book and started working on a second. Sarah grew into a fierce, brilliant little girl who had her mother's intelligence and her father's intensity. The Sarah Chen Foundation flourished, supporting investigative journalists and funding research into corporate corruption. Kate sat on the board, using everything she'd learned about power structures and systemic problems to guide their work. They helped expose 3 major cases of fraud in their first 5 years, leading to reforms that protected workers and held companies accountable. Adrian never went back to running an empire. He consulted occasionally, invested in small businesses owned by women and minorities, and spent most of his time being present for his family. He coached Sarah's soccer team despite knowing nothing about soccer. He showed up to every school event. He was there in ways his own father never had been, breaking cycles and building something new. And sometimes, late at night when Sarah was asleep and the house was quiet, Kate and Adrian would sit on their balcony and remember that first night. The gala where everything changed. The moment when Adrian had said, "She's mine," and shattered every boundary they'd carefully maintained. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd walked away that night?" Kate asked once. "Every day," Adrian admitted, "and I'm grateful every day that you didn't." "Me too." Kate Lawson had walked into Adrian Wolf's life as an invisible assistant and left as his wife, his partner, the mother of his child. She'd helped destroy a criminal empire. She'd survived a car bomb. She'd rebuilt herself from the ground up into someone stronger than she'd ever thought possible. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It wasn't safe or simple or easy. But it was hers. Theirs. Built on honesty and trust and the choice to keep choosing each other, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. And in the end, that was all that mattered.